Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. And our first agenda item this morning is case number 6494. So, in Mr. Dixon's absence, I will attempt to introduce the file. In the file this morning, we have a copy of the minutes from the site visits. We then have the application and the documents that go along with the application. We then have the notice of public hearing that was posted on February 16th, 2024, and the adjoining properties. We have a letter from Ms. Kelly Miller. Encloses the filing. Please find an amended application package with revised explanation and list of adjoining property owners. We have a response to Joe Vance's request about this case from Laura Matthias, Development Review. A site plan is required in accordance with Chapter 155. Also, in response to Joe Vance's request, we have Tom Harris, says a building and electrical permit will be required for the installation of the tank. The owner or installer shall obtain all required permits from the Maryland Department of the Environment. And then from the acting zoning administrator, Anastasia, see attached sheet for information purposes, no comments. And it just goes through what the setback requirements are in the code. And then Andrea Hanley in response says proposed use may not be acceptable unless it is demonstrated that there is an adequate water supply and adequate area for the installation of an initial and 2 replacement septic systems for the proposed use and any existing uses of this property. J.P. Smith, Ag Land Preservation Program Administrator, his response to Joe Vance's letter: this property is not in ag preservation. I have no comments at this time. There is the legal notice that was in the paper, in the Carroll County Times. Pat Varga from, he would be in resource management. He has an attachment on the stormwater. There's the tax map, the notice of public hearing, and then we have the actual site plan for this project. So I'll introduce a motion to enter the file into evidence.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right.
We'll go ahead and move the file into evidence. I see everybody, I'm assuming everyone is signed in the clipboard. I saw the activity when I entered the room. A couple of things: make sure that you leave by the same door that you came in today, so that at the end of the day, they're not looking for you. So make sure you do that. And if you plan on testifying today, I'm going to ask you to stand and take the oath. So if you You might as well, they're in the back row. You never know. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Very good. You can be seated. So there's some faces out there that I'm sure have never been to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So let me try to explain the process that we're going to use. Ms. Schaefer is representing the applicant here today. She will go ahead and give opening statements, and then she will call witnesses. And after each witness gives their testimony, you in the audience will have the opportunity to just ask questions of what that person has just said. And then the board will have the same opportunity. And after Ms. Miller is finished with her witnesses, then anyone in the audience can go to the microphone. Please state your name, address, occupation, and spell for the record your last name. And go to the microphone and you can give your own testimony. So in the first part here, when Ms. Miller's part of the program, I'm sorry, Kelly. It is only to ask questions of the testimony. I promise you, you'll get the opportunity for your own testimony later. Okay, with that, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, Kelly Schaefer Miller, and Schaefer is still my legal middle name, so there's no harm, no foul. 73 East Main Street, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. As Mr. Bale introduced, I'm here today on behalf of the applicant and the property owner. I have with me, seated to my left, Mr. Craig Owings, who will testify as the prospective tenant, but the property owner, Mr. Cyril Albee, is also present and will testify. He's seated behind me. So with that, I will briefly just state that as Mr. Bale introduced with the file, we are here today requesting conditional use approval for above-ground petroleum product storage tank and multiple associated variances. The amended application added additional distance variances, and the way that you can, if you're looking at a copy of the most recent plan, I will just point you to look to the red circle that goes around the perimeter of the plan. That is a measurement of 600 feet from the use out, which is the distance requirements in the code require 600-foot measurement from the use to certain adjoining properties. I say certain because the way that that section of the code is written depends on the acreage and the use of the property as to whether you are required to request a variance for those properties. So the required variances are outlined in the application, but there are several distance variances requested from adjoining properties, and also for purpose of locating the tank where it is situated on that property. It is slightly closer to the property lines than otherwise required. So there are variances requested that are associated with that as well. This area, as most people in Carroll County know, it is called the Silver Run area. This property specifically sits within an area that has a long history in the county as an industrial park. I use that term not as a term of art because that we do have a defined industrial park in our zoning ordinance, and I am not using it in that context. I'm just using it more in the general sense that this has always been used as a kind of conglomeration, if you will, of different industrial uses back in this part of Silver Run, and we'll get into it in a bit, but if you look at the zoning map, this area is actually comprised of both I-2 zoning, and there are some commercial properties back here, and then there's an additional mixture of agriculturally zoned properties in this area. So I am going to first hand out a few packets to you of the exhibits that I intend on entering.
Do you have them labeled already?
I do, yes.
That makes my...
And I also, this is the originals for Mr. Dixon, so.
Okay, so that'll go to the file.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have an extra copy that I'll just sit here in case any of you wants to take a look as well. So we will go through these specifically in testimony, but I did want to point out that what I have labeled as applicant's exhibit 1 is really more of a judicial notice sort of exhibit for the board's sake. These are a compilation of prior Board of Zoning Appeals decisions for this area being this industrial park area of Silver Run. And so what the first page here lists is kind of just a summary of what's included, but then I've also included copies of all of those past decisions. Again, I'm going to ask that you enter this as applicant's exhibit 1. This is also something that you, as a board, could take judicial notice of because they're all the board's past decisions. So at this point, I would like to ask that be entered as applicant's 1.
And we will accept this as exhibit applicants number 1.
Thank you. With that, I will call my first witness. Craig, can you please state your name and address, please, and spell for the board your last name?
Yes, Craig Stephen Owings, Owings, and I reside at 2185 Richardson Road, Westminster, Maryland, 21158.
Craig, can you tell the board a little bit about yourself and the type of business that you are in?
Yeah, so I've been in trucking for 33 years, mainly tractor trailers for 26 years, 27 years, and then about 6 years ago I started this energy company delivering home heating oil to the residents in the county. In the past 6 years, I've managed to get in the 2,000 customer range, and I probably deliver 300,000 to 500,000 gallons per season, mainly just in the winter months.
And Craig, are you the prospective tenant of this site?
Yes,
Okay. So you do not own this property, correct?
correct,
But you are the owner of the business that you just described, correct?
correct.
So in looking specifically at this site, I am going to have you turn to what I have marked as applicant's exhibit 2. Here, I'll pass you mine so you can just see it right there. Now, is that a Google Earth aerial that shows the site?
Yes,
And that red kind of circle mark, does that depict the area in which the tank is proposed?
that's correct,
Is that reasonably accurate, showing that area to the best of your knowledge?
correct, yes.
I would like to ask that applicant's exhibit 2 be entered, please.
And we will accept that into evidence.
Thank you. All right, Craig, I'm turning you now to what's been marked as applicant's exhibit 3. Is that a Google Street View showing the view into the site from Maryland Route 97?
Yes, it is.
I'd like to ask that applicant's exhibit 3 be entered, please.
And we will accept that into evidence.
All right, now I am showing you what's been marked as applicant's exhibit 4. Yes, 4. Is that a photograph of the site showing the specific concrete pad area where the tank is being proposed?
Yes, it is,
And that was taken very recently, correct?
correct.
Okay, can you read the date at the bottom of there, when that was taken?
Yes, February 15th of 2024.
And just for the board's purposes, I know that the board did a site visit, but this area has all kinds of stuff going on back there. So just to be very clear, can you kind of tell them in this photograph where the tank would be?
So the tank would be toward the, I'm assuming toward the back of the pad.
So is that where that truck is kind of parked in that photograph?
Yes,
All
it
right.
would be to the left of the telephone pole,
Okay,
and toward that corner, yes.
perfect. I'd like to ask that applicant's exhibit 4, the site photograph, be entered, please.
And we will accept that into evidence.
Thank you. Craig, can you tell the board the type of fuel that or specify the type of fuel that would be in this tank?
It's home heating fuel and off-road fuel, which are essentially the same fuels. They're both red fuel. I don't do any gasoline whatsoever and don't plan on ever doing any of that. So it's
Craig,
just,
when you're speaking, just make sure that you speak up, because this only records, it doesn't amplify.
Oh,
So just
okay.
make sure that you're speaking up so everybody can hear you.
yeah, so just home heating oil and off-road diesel. which is essentially the same product. Never any gasoline. I don't truck any gasoline, and don't have any plans of doing that in the future. So just the heating oil.
And now on this plan, we've shown a 20,000 gallon tank. Do you think that that's going to be the ultimate size of the tank that you put there, or is it possible that it might be a little bit smaller than that?
Yeah, I've been speaking with them about a 12,000 actually, so it would be smaller, yes.
Okay, so we've shown a 20,000 gallon tank on the plan, but it's more likely that the tank will be smaller than 20,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you just said 12,000 gallon tank is the one you've been looking at currently, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, will this be the first tank that you own as part of your business?
Yes.
Okay. That being said, can you just generally describe your experience in the industry with that, prior to owning your first tank?
Well, right now I've loaded in at Griffith Energy, in behind the diner, Plum Crazy Diner off 140. So I've been loading in there for 6 years now. I don't know much about these tanks, if I'm being honest. I know they're double-walled tanks, and the outfit that I've been speaking with has told me that they work alongside of MDE. Nothing happens without approval from MDE, and they do the whole process. Will do that entire process for me.
So it's your intent, just to kind of go into that a little bit more, Craig. It's your intent to work with an outfit who will install this tank, correct?
Correct.
You will not personally be installing this tank?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
And in speaking with that outfit, you understand that they will, and you will have to go through all MDE and local permitting requirements. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And generally speaking, I think you may have already said this, so I apologize, but generally speaking, what type of customer are you serving? Are you serving commercial businesses, residential businesses? Who's your main customer?
Residential customers.
Okay. And how does that service work? Like, I know personally that I have a tank at my house that automatically gets refilled. Is that the type of service that you're providing, or does yours differ a bit from that?
I have automatic customers. The base of my customers is will call. They call me when they need oil, and I make a delivery to them, and that's.
Okay, so as a residential customer, I might not be on an automatic program with you, but if at any time I needed my tank filled, I could call you and request that service.
Correct, and you can go automatic just the same, yes.
Okay. And in the overall business, how many trucks do you have that will be delivering this fuel, that will be loading up from this tank and delivering this fuel?
Just two trucks.
Okay. Can you kind of describe to us those types of trucks, what they look like for people who maybe aren't as familiar?
Yeah, so they're smaller trucks. They're single axle trucks, commercial trucks, 33,000 gross vehicle weight trucks. They hold 2,800 gallons of heating oil at maximum. And then as the deliveries are made, the oil comes off, and then I come back and would be replenishing the truck from the tank.
And approximately how many times daily will those trucks access the site? Can you just outline how that looks?
Two times a day, each truck.
Okay. And is that morning, describe that to me.
That would be somewhere around midday, because we load up the evening before so that we're ready for the morning. And then usually come in between 11 and 2 to reload.
So are your drivers keeping the trucks at the site, or are they taking them home with them?
My truck will probably be at the site, but my driver takes his truck home.
So in terms of access to the site and the daily trips and those sorts of things associated with the site, the second truck predominantly is not at the site first thing in the morning. It goes direct from your driver's house to a customer's house.
Correct.
Fuels up their tank, and then comes back to the site sometime mid-morning, midday, refills, and goes out for another customer. Is that an accurate depiction?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you said it in your introduction, but I want you to be a little bit more specific. is your operation seasonal in nature?
Yeah, it's very seasonal. I would say mid-September, first part of October, we start to get busy, and like right now, it's starting to wind down. It will go on until May, mid-May, but then in the summer months, I go to the mountain. I don't do much in the summer.
And by
Which
go
is
to the
nice.
mountain, you mean you're not working, you're not driving
Correct.
and doing the fuel business, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so you just talked about kind of mid-September through mid-April being your predominant quote-unquote busy months,
Correct.
correct? Okay, and in that time period, what sort of hours of operation do you anticipate having? And hours of operation being, when are you going to be accessing this site? When are people going to be coming here?
So I usually start my day at 7 a.m. So my truck would be there. I would be leaving the site at 7 a.m. And then, like I said, it gets refueled, 11 to 2. We come back and refuel. And the trucks are usually parked, by 6.
Okay, so 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And what days of the week are you talking in? And can you walk us through busy season versus kind of off season?
I try and stick to the 5 days a week. There are times that I have to go on the weekends. It's pretty rare that I go on the weekends, so it's mainly just the 5 days a week.
5 days a week being Monday through Friday, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And in the summertime, when you're not at peak operation, are you there every day, the same hours?
No, I might be there a day a week,
Okay. So it's drastically different during the summer season, correct?
drastically, yes.
Right. Now, is it accurate that you already deliver and provide fuel to some people in this general area to begin with?
Yes, there's probably 10 or 12 in that general area that I service.
Now, we just talked about the hours of operations for the site, but I want to be really clear. You're requesting a tank to be located here that your trucks go to and fill up from, correct?
Correct.
Is it accurate that there will not be anybody sitting here manning this all day long?
Correct.
Okay, so there's no other use component here. You're not asking for an accessory office use or any other kind of more permanent employee area at the site, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you, because of that, and because it's just your employees who are accessing this site, are you requesting any signage as part of this use?
No.
No, I just said it, but I should have reordered my questions. Is it accurate that there will not be any retail sale component from this site?
No.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So I couldn't drive up and load up my own tank?
No.
All right. Do you anticipate adding some kind of just normal lighting around this area?
Yes, I would like to have lighting around there, yes, and of course a fence as well.
Okay, so you'd like to have a little bit of additional lighting and a fence? And is part of that because you will not have somebody there all day monitoring this?
I think it's part of the process that they've put fencing around this type of, the tank structure.
Okay, so in talking with the installation companies, you've discussed the need for some fencing around it for just extra security purposes?
Yes, I would want it even if they didn't, but it seems to me that it's required.
Okay. Those are my only questions of Mr. Owings, unless the board or others have any.
Okay, does anyone in the audience have any questions of Mr. Owings' testimony? And again, questions of his testimony, you can give your own testimony later, but if you have any questions about what he said. Okay, that's fine.
And just so that the board knows, I will also be calling the property owner, Mr. Cyril Albee, and Mr. John Lemmerman from RTF. I just wanted everybody to,
Okay. Okay, go to the microphone, please, don't be afraid of it. And please state your name, your address, and your occupation, and I hope it's retired.
You got that right.
Okay.
My name's Faye Iser, live at 4005 Littlestown Pike,
And spell for the record your last name.
I-S-E-R.
Okay, go ahead.
We have a well.
Okay, wait a minute. What questions? You can,
I'm
do,
sorry.
that's testimony, okay?
The
So-
trucks that come up, will they come, you said they were reasonably small trucks. They won't interfere with a well that's close to the property that he's putting the tanks on?
Mr.
We
Owens,
service water to a house behind us and ourselves.
can you answer that, or?
I'd be staying on the roadway that's existing. I don't-
Our neighbor gets oil from you, so you're a good company.
Correct. Yeah, he does.
I think that's all I had to say.
Yeah, I don't think any disturbance to a well, like I come in and out of there already. Maybe not every day by any means, but to service some of the houses.
And you will be coming in the lower drive, not the one between the houses.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Board members, questions?
A couple.
Go ahead.
You have some as well.
Thank you. I understand you deliver oil now, is that correct, in the area? I believe that's what you said.
Correct.
So how do you, can you help me understand how you do that? You do not, I could assume that you get it from a different source as far as the storage facility?
Yeah, I get it from Griffith Energy at this point.
Okay, got you. And you currently have 2 trucks, or is that gonna
Yes,
be
sir.
an expansion?
Now, got to.
So in order, although you'll be using smaller tankers, for lack of a better word, to transport from the storage facility to your customers, obviously, a larger tanker will come in to fill your tank,
Correct.
okay? And there's adequate space and room for them to be able to do that without any ambiguities?
Yes, as far
Okay.
as I'm aware, yes.
And how often, based on your volume, I think you said 300 to 500,000 gallons, is that, was
Yes.
your testimony?
Correct.
So how often would the tanker truck be coming in and out in order to refill your storage tank?
I would say in the winter, every 3 days,
Once every 3 days?
yes.
What does a typical large tanker carry?
So I did that for a long time, so.
That's what I'm asking.
7,500 gallons,
7,500 gallons?
correct.
Okay, 7,500 gallons. And I think you said your trucks carry 2,500 gallons,
28,
28.
Yep.
And you'll be doing 4 trips a day. That math doesn't really work. in
at
my head.
maximum, I was just at maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes when we come in to refuel, the truck's not empty. If we're in the area, you would top off the truck.
Mhm.
If you were in the area, say of Tawnytown, northern Carroll County, and then you were heading to southern Carroll County, I would top the truck off before I went down there. You
Understood.
don't want to go down there and run out of fuel and have to come all the way back, and then go all the way back down. So
Understood.
just-
And I'm not being argumentative, it's just that if your trucks handle, for round figures, 2,500 gallons, you have 2 trucks that are doing 4 trucks a day, 4 trips a day, that's 10,000 gallons. And you're saying a semi-truck provides 7,500.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, it's not full loads. When I mentioned that it was coming in and out of the facility, they're not all, it's very rare that I top off an empty truck. It's pretty rare that I top off an empty truck. Because when you're out making deliveries, you don't want to run out of fuel, because then you have to get from point B back to point A, back to point B to continue, and there's a lot of time loss in there. So whenever we're in the area, we'll top the truck off to keep that from happening.
I understand the logistics, I certainly do. Now, so if you had to sit back and reflect, looking at your busy time of the season, which I'm assuming would be fuel oil season,
Yes.
let's say from, in this area, November to March,
Yes.
October to March, whatever, the maximum number of times you would see the semi come in to refill your storage facility? Per week? Would you
Oh.
say 2, 3, 5, 12?
I would say two times a week, for 4, probably 5 months. Twice a week for 5 months. So 40 times, 50 times maybe.
Understood. Okay, that's my questions.
I have questions.
Okay.
Lisa, you have questions?
Okay, Mr. Caldwell.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Following on from my colleague's questions, I also have some misgivings about numbers of trips. You talked about a 20,000 gallon tank, right? In your initial application.
Yes, sir.
And you're talking now about reducing that to 12,000 gallons,
Yes.
which means you're going to have more trips to fill this tank.
Well, whether it's a 20 or a 12, it's going to be the same amount of trips to keeping it full.
I don't think so. If I've done my calculations correctly here, you said 300 to 500,000 gallons of fuel, which would, on a 20,000 gallon tank, require 15 to 25 deliveries based on 300 to 500. But you're saying you're only getting 7,500 per delivery, which multiplies that by another 1.6. So I did a quick calculation for a 12,000 gallon tank. We're talking at least 40 trips, which you just mentioned, just for refilling that tank. Plus you have your trips in and out emptying that tank. So there's a lot more trips involved. Would you agree?
The tanker trucks are only coming in, whether it's a 12,000 gallon tank or a 20,000 gallon tank. I'm not going to be purchasing any more fuel, no matter what size the tank.
Well, if you're using up to, or you're selling between 300 and 500,000 gallons, a smaller tank's going to require to be filled more often.
Correct, but not, there's not going to be any more trips. More often, yes, but there's not going to be any total overall more trips.
If I can jump in, I think what Mr. Owens is trying to say is that he would purchase the same quantity of fuel. I mean, a bigger tank does not obligate you to keep a bigger tank fuller, if you will. And so his business model is kind of prefaced on this 12,000 gallon tank. We've requested the 20,000 to be overly conservative in the sense. He anticipates not going up to a 20,000 gallon tank, but should he need to, that's what's been shown and is being requested. Now that he's getting into the fine-tuned details of looking at tanks, he's looking at the 12,000 gallons. So just because one is bigger than the other doesn't require that one always be more full than the other, I guess. And all of that is part of the business model, and based upon the amount and the quantity of fuel that one is purchasing to load the tanks.
In response to that, though, the reality is the larger the tank, the more the business can grow, the more traffic there will be. So why not request a 100,000 gallon tank is the point I think is being made. Again, I appreciate the business model, that you're looking at about a 12,000 gallon capability, but if tomorrow or 5 years from now, your business has exponentially grown, obviously, if you were approved for a 50,000 gallon tank and that fit into your business model, you would utilize a 50,000 gallon tank, and that would basically translate into much more traffic, much more refilling, and so forth and so on. So I think that's basically what we're kind of driving at. So can you help us with that?
I can help you with that.
Thank you.
So at this point in my life, I'm going to shut new customers off. Probably not too far off. I get up to 2,500 customers. I'm not going to take any more customers. I don't want to be a job creator and a babysitter, if you will, of people. I just want to make a decent living and supply the community with good pricing on fuel. I'm not looking. That's never going to happen. Whether I'm going to have those 300 to 500,000 gallons will go to 1 million gallons, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to let it happen. I'm kind of content where I'm at, to be honest.
Any other?
Okay, I don't really feel like I've got an adequate answer on the number of trips.
I did the math. Mr. Owings, would it be accurate to assume that at 300,000 gallons, there would be 40 tanker loads would come into your facility annually, and if it was at 500,000 gallon, it would be 66 trailer loads?
Yeah, at 7,500 gallons each trailer load, yeah, that's the way the math
Yeah,
comes
that's the
out.
numbers I got, yeah.
So that's how many loads will be coming in to your facility,
Correct.
and there's 7,500, and your tanks 12,000, so you don't have to drain it in order to get a full tanker. Would that be correct?
Yes, when it gets low, then I can have a tank delivered, yes, and keep it topped off.
No retail sales,
No,
and MDE takes care of the safety concerns as far as the containment and the security.
correct. Yeah, the company CSIE that I've been speaking with, they said that they work alongside with MDE. Nothing happens without MDE's approval. They go through and help me the whole process.
And Mr. Bale, to that kind of point also, and you'll hear more testimony on this, keep in mind that this will still be subject to a site development plan. So kind of to
yeah.
Mr. Snyder's point about the potential for business growth and those sort of things beyond having to come back to this board, if in fact Mr. Owings' entire life plan changed, you know, a year from now and he wanted to grow that tank larger, not only would we have to come back to this board, but we would also have to address any and all requirements through the site development plan process as well, because that will be driven by whatever he puts out there, which will be the size tank. You know, right now he's looking at the 12,000 gallon size tank. So all of the permitting and all of those requirements will be tied to that tank.
Mr. Iser, I'm assuming you're Mr. Iser. You raised your hand. Go to the microphone.
Theodore Iser,
Okay.
husband of Faye Iser, 4005. Can I say what I want to say?
No. This is only time for questions. You'll have the opportunity for your own testimony a little bit later in the process, I promise you.
Okay, I want to know if they're going to be responsible for my well.
I don't,
My well is on the property.
I don't know whether Mr. Lemmerman can
Mr.
respond to that. I don't know.
Iser, I don't know if we can speak to, are we going to be responsible for your well per se? But all of the testimony so far that has been heard is that we will not be interfering with the well, with any existing wells out there.
No, they're going to be responsible for my well. Because they're going to be driving over my line the whole time. And a tractor and trailer drove over close to my well, and it busted the line off. So if they're going to be going over my well line, they're going to be responsible.
Okay, and Mr. Iser, we'll let you make those comments.
I got a lot to talk about my well.
Yeah, I will, I promise you, you can talk about that a little bit later in this process, because Ms. Miller is going to call 2 more witnesses, and then I promise you, I'll let you go to the microphone first,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
Okay, anything else, Ms. Ecker?
I do have one question. I don't know if you can speak to this or if you're comfortable speaking to this. You indicated that you're getting your fuel from Griffith now.
Correct.
Once you install this tank, and I'm not looking for dollars and cents, I don't know if you have a percentage, what percentage savings will you realize by having your own tank?
Not really sure yet.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to briefly go back to the trip math calculation, only because it took me a little while to whip out my calculator here and catch up to everybody. So, you know, if we're talking about a 300,000, and I just want to make sure I have what everyone has said straight and we're all on the same page. So you heard Mr. Owings testify to during peak months, which for him are mid-September through mid-April. He anticipates approximately twice a week, operating Monday through Friday, twice a week deliveries of fuel to load up the tank. Okay? If we're talking about 300,000 gallons of fuel being distributed in that 8-month period at 40 loads, then that breaks down to less trips than he's testified to in that regard. So I just want to be clear about that. And I also, Mr. Owings, correct me if I'm misstating this, but your testimony related to your small trucks going in and out of the site, when you said 4 times a day, you're talking in, out, 4 times a day, correct?
Correct.
So not reloading 4 times a day, but in and out. He was counting both of those as one access, if you will. ingress, egress, ingress, egress, 4 trips. So I mean, my math is mathing, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we don't think he's grossly mischaracterizing or underestimating the trips that he's so far testified to. Mr. Caldwell looks skeptical, that's why I'm belaboring the point.
Oh, just a question of clarification on your calculation. Are you including both the delivery of fuel oil as well as the removal of it for sale in your calculation of numbers of trips?
No, I think there were 2 separate pieces of trip estimation. One is the small trucks that he anticipates will go in and out a maximum of 4 times a day.
Got
And
that.
then a separate trip estimate for the tanker, which will be approximately 2 times a week, maybe less, during busy peak months.
So you're estimating, if we take it down to just numbers of trips per day, you've got four vehicle movements in and out, right, 4 deliveries, and then, so that's, I presume you're delivering 5 days a week, right?
Yes.
5 days a week, so that's 20 trips, 20 movements per week, plus another 4 for vehicles, so that's 24. Agree with that number?
Yes,
Okay, cool, thank you.
thank you. Okay. I feel like I'm on your page now.
Okay, any other board members, any other questions on Mr. Owings' testimony? Okay, very good. Ms. Miller, would you like to call your next witness?
I would, thank you, Mr. Owings. You can stay up here or you can have a seat if you'd like to. I'll next call Mr. Cyril Albee. Cyril, join us at whatever microphone. Cyril, can you please state your name, spelling your name, and your address?
Cyril, last name Albee, A-L-B-E-E. I reside at 4015 Arders Mill Road, Westminster, Maryland, 21158.
And Mr. Albee, are you the property owner of the subject property?
Yes,
Okay, and you consented to this application, correct?
yes.
Can you just generally describe, for those unfamiliar, this area of Silver Run and the sort of how this industrial park, if you will, operates?
As far as just,
I mean, is it several property owners back here? in
there's
this?
multiple properties back in there of varying industrial and commercial uses.
And there are multiple owners and multiple tenants that exist back there today, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you kind of heard me call this an industrial park. Is that sort of an accurate description of how this area operates back in Silver Run?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is the copy of the plan. Can you see that from here? This plan is what was submitted with the application. Can you please show or describe on the plan how the property is accessed?
For these properties back in here, there is one entrance, I believe it's a 50-foot wide right-of-way that all these properties utilize for access.
Now, I want to make sure that everybody's looking at the right thing. So, if we are looking at the requested use area, which is the kind of red rectangle on the plan, if we go straight out to the west of that paved driveway off of Route 97, is that the main access that you're talking about?
Correct.
Okay. Everybody, I didn't put it up on the screen, so I just want to make certain that everyone's able to orient themselves. Chime in if you can't find the point of access, please. So, Mr. Albee, that driveway that accesses the site accesses direct from Route 97, correct?
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, do you have the legal right to use that access for this property?
Yes,
Okay. And how do you know that?
it's in the deed.
Okay. So there's a right-of-way included in the deed for your property that gives your property and others the right to use that access point, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that access point is actually part of those industrial properties.
And as part of the existing park and all of the existing uses back in this area, well, actually, first, let me ask you this. Are you back on this site frequently? Do you have the opportunity to observe the activity that happens back in this whole industrial park area?
Yes.
Okay. And as part of what exists back there today, without this requested use, are there other industrial uses operational back there today that have truck traffic associated with them?
Yes, generally there's at least one tractor trailer going in and out of the day, but
Or Union Mills,
a fair
actually.
amount of truck traffic.
So there are tenant,
Yeah,
there's
I see.
tenant traffic and truck traffic that accesses this whole park area as it exists today, correct?
Correct.
And they're accessing from the same point that we're talking, that you just described to the board?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything, from your observation of this area and how it all operates together, is there anything about the requests you heard Mr. Owings kind of outline in terms of the characteristics of his use that you think are more intense in nature than the other industrial uses in this park area?
No.
Now, have you had the opportunity to speak with some of your neighboring property owners about this request here today?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been marked as applicant's exhibit 5. Take a look at that, Cyril. Now, applicant's exhibit 5 is that first map, Cyril, but then keep turning because there's several letters after that. In talking to some of your neighbors in this area, were they willing to express their support of this application?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what you're looking at on applicant's exhibit 5, is that a visual depiction of the neighbors who have expressed their support?
Yes.
And attached to that, are those all letters that you have received from those adjacent or close in proximity neighbors supporting the application?
Yes.
Now, did you also, since that time that you've spoken to those neighbors, did you have the opportunity to get an additional letter as well that's not depicted on there?
I did, yes.
Okay.
What number is that?
I have just marked that applicant's exhibit 7 just to
Okay, so you
keep what's already marked here.
you want to do 5 and 6 and 7? Because we haven't entered those into evidence.
Yes, I haven't entered 5. I'll do 5 and 7 together, and then Mr. Lemmerman will testify to 6 if that's it.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and accept 5 and 7 into evidence.
Second? Yeah, they call it the lower entrance.
Right.
Yeah. You know, that's how that big monstrosity of a house is.
All right, so, Mr. Albee, that, what's been marked as applicant's exhibit 7 is an additional support letter from a neighbor, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that is not highlighted on the map, correct?
It is not.
Okay. Those are my only questions of Mr. Albee, unless the board has any. I see everybody looking at their plan, so I do want to be very clear on the point of access if anybody has any questions related to that.
Okay, wait a minute. Anyone in the audience have any questions of Mr. Albee's? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Iser. You got to go to the microphone, I'm sorry.
Just curious as to who all the new tenants are. Everybody that was there in 79 are gone. The building, a lot of them are empty.
Yeah, I don't have any tenants myself. There's, I mean, I can name a few that I know of on other properties that are not mine.
Because I don't know any of the neighbors.
Yeah, they've,
Nobody
they
back
have
here.
changed around. A lot of those original businesses have left, but there are a fair number of people that are back there. I mean, would you like me to name a couple, or?
I think perhaps you could
There
just make
was
yourself
Schmillions,
available to talk, to be
Terry
neighborly
Strabik,
with Miss Iser
He-
afterwards.
Yeah, that's the body shop.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's occupied by, I think, 4 other people, that body shop now. 4 other tenants. But again, that is not my property.
Because a lot of tenants we had there weren't the nicest tenants. That had a lot of shootings and stabbings in that back. So I'm glad we got some good new tenants.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. That was probably before I was born.
It was
so,
in-
yeah,
it was in 79 and 80 something.
yeah. Before my
So,
time.
okay, just wondered.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience have any questions of Mr. Albee's? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Caldwell.
Thank you.
Mr. Iser had his hand up.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Iser. Well, yeah, but questions of Mr. Albee, you can give your testimony later, I promise you.
Well, it's about the right of way going in.
Okay, go ahead to the microphone, Mr. Iser.
It's about the right of way going
Okay.
up into the cannery.
Okay.
on 97.
And just wait a minute, just hold it. Is this a question better suited for Mr. Lemmerman? Do you think, if it's about the right-of-way, Ms. Miller?
I think it makes sense to hear the question and then
Okay,
see.
okay. Well,
You know,
go
if it's-
ahead and
if-
ask the question.
If Mr. Albee's not able to answer, he'll say, you know. and then
Okay,
maybe-
go ahead, Mr. Iser.
The road going up into the cannery is nothing but holes in the road. And my well line is not down too deep. And there are big holes there where my well line goes across that road. So I want somebody to be responsible for any damage of my well. If they get too close to my well, it's gonna go down, because the ground is not that sturdy. Unless they wanna dig up the road and put a pipe in there where it would be solid.
Mr. Al,
Back years ago, let me,
wait, that's testimony, Mr. Albee, or Mr. Iser. Mr. Albee, can you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I know a little, I mean, I think he's speaking to some of the history in there, which I have a pretty good idea on. I mean, I can try to answer if you want, at least to the best of my ability.
Okay,
So Mr. Iser's well is not located on his property. It's not located on my property. It's actually located on a neighboring property. It's next to where the access point that everybody uses is, and I think what he's saying is he's concerned about his well line, which runs from, obviously, from the point where the well casing is over to his house, underneath of, when we say right of way, that right of way is not owned by Mr. Iser nor any of the other residential
Right.
people back in there. It is owned by, the right of way now, owned by the various industrial properties that are back there. That particular point where his well line crosses is not on my property either. It is owned by the property that his well sits on. But it sounds like he's just concerned about truck traffic driving over where the well line is.
okay, so my question, because there's two access points to the, I'm gonna call it the complex.
There's
Will Mr. Owings' truck traffic be using that, the upper entrance, I'm gonna call it, or the lower entrance?
there's actually only one access point to the complex. There is one property back on the complex that has, owns property that by driving over other people, other industrial parks, properties, you can get to the industrial park.
Cyril,
But that is not what,
Can we
that is.
put, I just want them to see like what
Yeah,
you're
it's-
talking about,
th-
so.
There is only one access point to this industrial park that can be used. It's possible to drive over other people's property to get there, but that's not what people use.
Okay, my question is, which one is that? Is it the one across from
The one
Mayberry
that's-
Road?
The one that Craig's testified to and that Kelly has,
Is it the lower one or the upper
the
one?
lower. The lower is the only entrance to the industrial park.
lower one?
The one towards
Can we,
Bud's?
Yes, towards Bud, correct. That is the lower and that is the only access point to
And Mr. Iser's concern is that driveway or the upper driveway?
that driveway,
That driveway.
that driveway.
Where's the upper one? He lives over here.
wait a minute, I'm completely confused. Can we put
That's
this
why I
up
want-
somewhere?
Well, Cyril, can you walk up here
Sure.
with me? Just don't talk until you're in the mic.
Mr. Owings, could you come and help hold the map?
Sure.
So that Kelly can be near, these two can be at a, can you be our easel, please?
Without talking in their faces, try to angle.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Mr. Albee, no, I can't see.
But Mr., yeah, there we go.
More.
I need you to move so that Mr. Snyder can see this too.
Thank you.
It's, I can tell you the owner, but it is not mine.
Zero.
Just wait a minute,
You
wait a
know,
minute.
it's okay.
Yeah, well, we can move.
All right, 0.2, the main point of access for this entire park.
All right, so the main point of access is, I gotta get my bearings here. Where's 97?
That's
Right there.
97,
97, so right here.
So
which is the lower
Next to
entrance.
Upper that you're talking about is right here. But
Cro-
that is not,
Wait a minute, do that again, I can't see.
yeah.
I'm sorry,
And-
start
and where
again.
did-
Upper entrance, lower entrance.
Okay, and,
Oh, I had those
and
backwards.
Mr. Iser, where's your property?
My property is right on the corner of this road, 4005.
He's right here.
Could you point,
Okay,
Mr. Eisner, could you point where your well is, sir?
Can I say something about my
I
well?
think the well,
As
I
well as
think-
right here.
All the way up there?
As well as,
Wow.
yes.
Can I say something about my well? When I bought my house, I got the right of way to my well on somebody's property. I got the right of way to dig it up the road or whatever I gotta do if I have a leak in it. So it's on somebody's property. I thought it was on his property.
It is not. I know whose property it's on,
Now,
but
I
it's
don't know
not.
whose property it's on.
okay.
But if they're gonna be driving trucks over and over that line, if they get too close to my well, it's gonna push that dirt down.
There's
Because it's not that solid.
ballards next to the well to keep it from,
No,
Should,
I
Come-
heard
come-
somebody's gonna blacktop
One
that
second.
right away.
so show me one more time exactly where the well is.
Because I can't see that far, thank you.
I got it, Kelly, over
I
here.
got it. This is the main point of access, right
Right,
here.
Right.
here's where he
Okay.
lives. The well's
And the
That's-
well's like right here.
Underneath this.
So that
Okay.
is Rock Oak Partnership?
Correct, that's
Yes.
who owns that property.
Okay.
It's that property.
So do trucks not drive over it now?
No,
No,
No, not at all.
they ruined the well.
If they
bed
get
if
too
they're
close
driving
to
over
it, it'll.
if you drive off the road, it's possible to hit the well, yes.
Okay, but
They
my
have
point
done
is,
it before.
how is the road used now?
I mean, that is the only point of entrance to that industrial park.
And do trucks not drive over it now?
Trucks drive on the road,
Yes.
but the road doesn't interfere with his well. They'd have to go
Let
off
me
the
say
existing
Okay,
road
I'm so sorry,
to
just wait a
knock
second,
into the
please.
well.
So I'm getting lost here. This is the main access to this area?
This whole,
Okay.
Yes,
And I asked a simple question. I said, do trucks not drive down that road now, or is the road going to change in some fashion?
that's where trucks drive now is where everyone's.
we're not adding any more roads.
So what I'm asking is, there's just going to be a little bit more truck traffic over a road that's currently being used by trucks.
Yes,
That's why I wanted to ask.
And it's over the well line, not the well itself.
he's talking about the
This,
well line.
this
Yeah.
right of way is so bad, it's full of holes. Now, they use this right of way to get back in there, a lot of the trucks, tractor trailers. They use this road instead of that road, because this right of way is full of holes. Now, I don't know what they wanna do
Wait
about
until
the
we get
road.
back to the microphones, okay?
Okay. So we,
I'm sorry, Mom.
okay. And Mr. Iser, I promise you, I will give you opportunity for your own testimony, I promise you. A little bit later. She's got one more witness
I
after
ain't
him.
got no more to say about it than what they just said.
Well, we'll let you say it again, okay, as testimony.
Should you want?
Okay, any other questions while we have the plan here in front of us?
Yes, I'd like to know who is responsible for maintenance under this right-of-way agreement?
I don't know if there is one.
There's, I mean, I don't want to say too much that's not getting captured, but this is a right-of-way that's in an old deed, okay? And it's been carried forward. There's no declaration of maintenance obligations like you would see on a common situation, or a more modern, not common, more modern situation like this. So maintenance is probably, a legal question, but shared by the industrial park. Remember
So
that
there's
Mr.
nothing
Albee is
formal.
just one owner of several properties back here who I too zoned and have industrial uses. All of those have this right of way access.
And it's not just a right-of-way access, that right-of-way is owned but there's no residential owners of that right of way. It's just a shared right of way for all the industrial uses back there. We're not, the right resides on their property.
lawyering a little bit, but he's got the gist.
Okay.
So there is no maintenance agreement, there is nothing in writing.
I have not done full title on this property, but I've done enough title research, and I'm sure you could ask Mr. Lemmerman if he has anything additional to share when he testifies. I am unaware of there being any sort of modern maintenance obligation agreement like the county would require now. That doesn't mean that there aren't legal requirements, you know, and kind of an equitable share in maintaining those areas, but the county only in more recent history has required declaration of maintenance obligations and those sorts of formally recorded documents that outline how and when and why people are obligated to share in the maintenance sort of scheme. It doesn't mean that there aren't other legal requirements there, but it means that more recently is when the county has started implementing those and requiring those specifically be recorded and therefore would reflect in a chain of title.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Very good. And Mr. Iser, I promise you I'll give you the microphone. I promise you.
Next time I'll remember to put this on the board and I'll bring laser.
Okay, well, go, Mr. Iser, go back to the microphone so that we can record every word of yours and you can ask your question. Okay, Mr. Iser. So you have a question for Mr. Albee?
I want to ask, he's the owner of that property back in there.
Yes,
And you helped fix the well when the tractor trailer hit it.
that wasn't me, no.
Wasn't
You guys
you?
had called me and I gave you the number of the owner.
Well, the tractor trailer did run over my well one time, come out of that property.
There was all
The
right.
guy owned it, fixed it. So that, well, I'm gonna know if these trucks going back in there now is gonna be responsible for anything that happens
And,
to my well.
and we can't answer that question. We as a board.
Can
Can,
I
Mr. Albee,
clarify?
can you
Yeah, I can
attempt?
clarify a little bit. So what he's talking about is there, again, not my property, but the property that the well's on. They were parking tractor trailers there for, I think it only lasted for a week after the incident he's referring to happened. They stopped doing it, but it was a truck coming out of that property that ran over his well casing. It was not a truck that was on the right of way back through there that hit the well casing.
So it was a truck that was parked on the property where the well was located?
Again, not my property. The property that the well is located on was having, again, this lasted for like 1 week, had trucks parking back there, tractor trailers parking back there. They were using it as a, I guess you'd call it, what, motor freight terminal, Kelly?
Cyril,
It's-
that's
Yeah, anyway, that's the incident that.
I don't represent them, so I don't know.
It was not a truck that was on the, that was using the right of way. It was a truck that was on that property, is what he's referring to, just for clarification.
Okay. Another question, Mr. Iser, a question, not testimony, okay? You have a question of his testimony?
Well, I'm gonna talk about the trailer hitting my
You-
well.
Hey, I'll give you that opportunity a little bit later, I promise you.
Questions.
Huh?
I just wanna be, if anybody hits my well, to be responsible.
We'll let you do that during testimony, so I promise you, give me another 10 minutes and you can have the microphone. Okay. Anything else with Mr. Albee?
Yeah, I just briefly want him to, Mr. Albee, when there was an incident that occurred and Mr. Iser reached out to you, did you help him and coordinate with the actual property owner to get the situation resolved at
Yeah,
that point?
I don't think Mr. Iser even called me. Another neighbor called me. I gave them the number of the property owner, and then that property owner fixed his well casing and then kicked off the people that ran.
We're
over
parking
the
in that
well.
area, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was resolved.
That was resolved.
Okay. That was my only, just follow-up.
Any other questions, board members? Okay. Thank you. You want to call your next witness?
I would, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to call Mr. John Limmerman. Yep, join the table. John, do you want this?
Mr. Lemon, Could you go ahead and state your name, address, and occupation?
Good morning, John Lemmerman, professional land surveyor and planner with RTF Associates, 142 East Main Street, Westminster.
And we will accept him as an expert witness.
Thank you. I was going to ask that he be offered as an expert in the area of surveying, land use, design, and planning.
And we'll accept him as we have before, many
Thank you.
times before.
Thank you. Mr. Lemmerman, have you been present for the entirety of this hearing and heard all of the testimony presented?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And were you asked to prepare a drawing or a plan that accompanied this application?
Yes.
Right. And is that the plan that we've just been referencing and talking about?
Yes, it is.
In preparing the plan that accompanied the application, did you have the opportunity to visit the site, look at the zoning, the surrounding area, topography, natural features, in preparing the plan?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And can you describe the zoning of this property?
Sure, it's a mixed use of this property. It is partially agricultural and mostly I-2, which is heavy industrial. The agricultural land is pretty much along 97 stretch.
John, I'm going to ask you to take a quick look at the very last page of that packet sitting in front of you. That's been marked as applicant's exhibit 6. Is that the zoning map that shows the subject property with the split zone of the agricultural, like you said, along 97, and then the I-2 zoning?
Yes, it is.
I would like to ask that applicant's exhibit 6 be entered, please.
And we will accept applicants 6 into evidence.
Thank you. Can you generally describe, John, the surrounding zoning of this property?
Sure, there's a good bit of I-2, the heavy industrial, to the north and to the east of the site. There's a fairly large chunk of C1, which is a low-intensity commercial, to the south. And then there's agricultural along 97 and across the road to the north.
And approximately, well, can you tell us the acreage of the subject property?
The site is 3.328 acres.
Now, we just talked a lot about the access to the site, but I'm going to ask you some specific questions. Is it accurate that this site is accessed directly from Route 97?
Yes,
Okay. And is Route 97/Littlestown Pike a state highway owned and maintained road?
that's correct.
From all of the testimony that you've heard here today related to the traffic associated with this use, do you believe that Route 97 is capable of handling that type of traffic?
I do, yes.
Are you generally familiar with the site development plan process in Carroll County?
Yes, I am.
And as part of that, are you familiar with some of the water resource review and requirements?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Can you speak specifically to any additional requirements that a tank like this have as going through the site development plan process?
Sure. So Water Resource Protection is one of the agencies that will review the property during the site plan process. They have, this is a local ordinance that they use, and it includes in the manual that goes with it.
John,
So-
can you please, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you just make sure you're really speaking up so that anyone in the audience can hear, please?
Sure. So the local codes have requirements for water resource protection for sources of contaminant or hazardous materials, which includes fuel. And one of the requirements would be the tank would need to be double lined. There's supposed to be some containment areas for breaching, for emergencies. And there's other options, like as far as roofs and stuff like that, to keep the rainwater off. So you have to meet certain requirements in order to get the site plan approval for this use.
And is it true that in order to obtain a final approval, all of those requirements would be met?
Yes.
Okay.
And MDE's requirements at the permitting stage also.
Okay. Now, you're aware that as part of this application, the applicant has requested several variances, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on the plan itself, you heard me in my kind of introduction explain this red bubble, if you will. Does that also show then in kind of black, thinner black arrows, the actual distances to all of the variance points that we've requested?
Yes, it does.
And those have also been outlined in writing in the application as well, correct?
Yes.
Now, in taking a look at this property, can you point out some of the things that you would consider unique and unusual about this property?
Sure, there's a few of them. There's the shape of the parcel. I mean, it's generally a rectangle, but it has a large or a small area pocketed out into the southeast portion, which is where the fuel tank is going to be. It's a split zoning, which is fairly unusual, but particularly an agricultural and a heavy industrial mixed use is kind of unusual, which you wouldn't be able to put this use on the agricultural portion. And it's got some historical aspects. It's like as mentioned earlier, this is one of the first industrial sites in Carroll County. It's got some history there with the canning business. And there's quite a lot of Board of Zoning history in that general area of the county also.
Now, in showing the location of this tank kind of being at the, what I'll call the centermost area of the industrial part here, does that serve to locate it as close to the point of access as possible?
Actually, yes, it does.
And can you offer an opinion on any likelihood of this property getting an additional point of access direct onto 97?
I would say slim to none
Okay.
from State Highway.
And this use that's being requested, or the location rather of this use, is being proposed on an existing concrete pad on the site. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in locating this use in that area, are we also minimizing any additional disturbance that has to occur to this site to facilitate this request?
Yes. Technically, there really is, by definition, not really any proposed disturbance.
Okay. And should we relocate this use somewhere else on the site, would we likely still need similar, if not the same, sort of distance variances?
Very similar, yes. We might lose 2, but pick up 1 or 2 also.
Okay. So is there anywhere that we could relocate this on the site where we would not need distance variances?
No, nowhere.
In your opinion, would granting these variances threaten the public health, safety, or welfare?
Based on the checks and balances between the local regulations and state regulations, I don't believe there will be.
Okay. Now, do you have your zoning code handy, John?
Yes.
I would just like you to kind of give us list a few other uses that are permitted in the I-2 zone. If you need me to hand you an ordinance, I've got one too.
I got it.
Okay.
So other uses in the,
In the permitted
Permitted.
uses in the I-2 zone.
we have agricultural research laboratories and facilities, feed and grain sales may include storage, flour, grain milling, and drying. We have
Sorry, can you skip, all of those are relevant, but I'd really like you to take a look at the industrial uses in the I-2.
It's a long list. Okay. Let me make sure I'm reading the right category here. Okay, so we have, as far as industrial uses that are principal, it's artesian manufacturing, bituminous concrete mixing plants, blast furnace, boiler works and foundries, brewery, concrete and ceramic products manufacturing, concrete and asphalt recycling, distilleries.
Okay, I'll just cut you off. I think you've given the flavor of the I-2 zone. And obviously the board is familiar, generally speaking, but I just wanted you to clarify that. Now, in your experience and having heard all of the testimony that's been presented, do you believe that this use requested is more or less intense than some of those other uses you just listed in the I-2 zone?
I think as far as noise, traffic, and impacts, it would be less.
Okay. And can you kind of just explain your thought process there?
Sure. Generally speaking, for industrial, I think it's a low traffic impact to the community. It's an unmanned facility, so there's not going to be additional employees on site. There's really not much noise associated with filling fuel tanks, so.
Okay. And are you, in working in Carroll County, are you familiar with the Schultz v. Pritz conditional use standard?
Yes.
Are you familiar with other propane product tanks in Carroll County?
Propane?
I'm sorry, petroleum products tank. I think the actual code terminology is petroleum products storage tanks.
Generally, yes.
Okay. And in your opinion, is there anything that you've heard or that you're aware of that would create adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with such a use, irregardless of its location in the zone?
I don't see how, no.
Is there anything that you've heard testified to here today that would lead you to think that this is more intense than any other above-ground petroleum product storage tank?
No, it's probably less than most.
Those are my only questions of Mr. Lemmerman.
Okay, anyone in the audience have any questions of Mr. Lemmerman's testimony? Board members,
Just a couple real quick, if I may.
go ahead.
And I apologize if I missed part of it, because I was reading the several variances, all 18 of them, that was mentioned. The question is, looking at, this would have to go through a site plan process, would it not?
Yes, sir.
And part of that site plan process would look at the existing right-of-way, or the existing access to the property, would it not?
Yeah, it's one of the requirements, yes.
And what is the current size of the lower road, that, as it's been mentioned, the one closer to the Buds, the width?
The right-of-way itself is 50 feet wide.
With the actual road?
Actual road varies. It's got a wide entrance, and
I'm talking about the paved entrance, the one, the most northern edge,
right.
or western, I guess that's northern.
Does anyone have their scale with them?
The right-of-way is 50. He's talking about the paving width. It varies. Again, I could see it's over 20, 25
I'm sorry,
feet.
I can't hear you.
It varies a good bit. At the entrance, it looks like I'm estimating 25 to 30 foot wide, and it gets narrowed to maybe to 18 feet at the
Okay.
narrowest point.
But the actual road itself would be part of the site plan review process, would it not?
Yes, access is part of the review.
Understood. As I look at all the variances and understanding the background, the testimony is there's no place on the space that would be better suited for the tanks than where it currently is proposed.
Correct.
So you're saying, I guess, relative to looking at the way the wording goes when it comes to variances, it's somewhat of a hardship situation, but yet by the mere proposal of placing the tank on that spot, you've created your own hardship, have you not?
But that, I mean, that's a legal interpretation in terms of the variance standard,
Understood.
and self-created does not, the Maryland case law does not support an interpretation that because you're choosing to use a property for a use, you are self-creating a hardship that therefore rules you out of requesting variances. Maryland case law is very clear on the fact that you can still support and request a variance, even though obviously we are here today asking for this use, and there's nowhere else on this property where we could locate this use, has been the
Understood.
testimony.
I am familiar. Okay, that's my questions.
Mr. Caldwell.
Are there any other locations within the county that this facility could be placed on?
Within the county?
within industrial areas in the county?
Yes, there absolutely are. We haven't testified to that, but I can tell you that I'm certain that there are other places. Again, but I will also say that that is not part of the variance standard, and Maryland case law has clearly stated that just because a use can be relocated elsewhere does not mean that you are disqualified, for lack of a better word, from requesting variances. That does not overcome the legal standard. So variances can still be granted based on practical difficulty and unreasonable hardship, even if there are 50 other locations in the county where someone could locate the use without needing them. That is not the variance threshold, if you will.
So what makes a property unique?
I'm happy to kind of summarize Mr. Lemmerman's testimony. I was anticipating on doing that in my summation, but what Mr. Lemmerman has just testified that makes the property unique is the split zoning of the property, Ag and I-2, because this is a use that is not allowed in the agricultural zoning district, so it could not be located at all in that portion of the property. He also specified that the shape of this property is unique, and that the history of this property in the county and through looking at the previous BZA decisions of this area is unique. That was what he just testified to.
Yeah, I understand that. But, the choice of this location as opposed to somewhere else that may not require so many variances.
But that is something that Maryland case law has said is not to be considered in the granting of variances. Anyone could pick another location for any use. I mean, if I had all the money in the world, sure, I could absolutely find an industrially zoned property that would rent to me for this use somewhere else. But Maryland case law has explicitly said that that is not something that this board should consider in denying a variance request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Do you mind if I speak one more thing about wells?
Please, Mr. Lemmerman.
The health department also has, a say in the site plan process and approval process and permitting process. And the fuel tank is a contaminated source similar to a septic tank or any other source. And the tank is required to be 100 feet from any wells, which the proposed location is also. And that's all.
So it meets or exceeds that?
That's correct. So to get the health department, water resource protection, stormwater management at local level, and then the state MDE requirements to meet. Thank you.
One quick question, Mr. Lemmerman. You said about how unique this property is in it being a split zone. And you answered the question that Mr. Snyder had about the location of this tank would still require variances from property lines. Would that also apply to the setback requirements to property owners? I'm sorry. Could it be located in the industrial zone in an area that would not require the variances from from this existing property's property lines?
Would it, and the required setback to the property line? There's a lot of different variance numbers, so I'm going to make sure I'm
I
answering
think,
correctly.
John, what Mr. Bale is asking about are,
So, because we have variances from neighboring properties, but I'm talking about the property line of this the setbacks.
It's 100, that's my question. Okay.
and just to be clear, Mr. Bale, you're asking about the 100-foot setback
Yes.
requirement for these sorts of
Yes.
use? Thank you.
Is that one of the 18 variances you're referring to? That's okay. I'm confused.
Setback from the existing property line, the thing.
One of us.
I can't say for 100% yes or no, but there may be a slight pocket where I could put a tank in the I-2, but again, I don't, it's going to be tight, and I can't guarantee that without
Okay,
scaling
okay.
and drawing it out.
I wanted to be clear that this is the best location for this because it's a very unique property in that Ms. Miller is correct. Very few properties are industrial and ag.
Right. Heavy industrial.
I mean, holy Toledo, that's just not heard of. I just wanted to make sure that there was no other location where you could, no other location on the property that you could place that tank that wouldn't need the setbacks, the 100-foot setbacks from the property lines. Not property owners, but the property line.
Understood. And just to be clear, although I'll ask Mr. Limmerman to clarify, you know, when he answers that question, he's thinking about the whole site design element, not just literally, you know, is there someplace that could then get a site plan approval and locate this tank? So I think that's clear, but I just wanted the board to understand that when he answers those, he really thinks about the full picture.
Any other questions of Mr. Limmerman?
Yeah, I have a question. Please forgive my ignorance if it's in the file. So, Mr. Snyder said 18 variances. I'm looking at this plat that was prepared, and I'm seeing commercial zoning with residential dwellings on it, which is not atypical. But if these commercially zoned pieces were developed commercially, would we still need all of these variances? Or is it specific to the residential use on those sites?
So that is actually specific to, it's a little bit convoluted in how the distance requirements, so I'll just kind of walk through them just to clarify. So the way the distance requirements read are that you must request variances if you are, in our case, 600 feet from any lot in a residence district, of which there are none, okay? Because around this area, there's no residential zoning districts in this area. You see that from the map. The second is any residential lot of less than 3 acres in the ag or conservation district. So if a lot has been improved or is able to be improved with a house, then is less than 3 acres, you will see a variance requested from it on here, even though it's in ag or conservation, not in a residential zone. Then it is also on adjoining lots of 3 acres or more, minimum separation distance of at least 300. So in this case, we actually triple that to 900 because we're subject to 3 times the distance requirements, which the normal distance requirements are 200. So that makes us 600 feet from the first 2 types of uses I specified, but it makes us 900 from this use, which is and on adjoining lots of 3 acres or more, minimum distance of 900 from dwellings is required. So you will see that there's one kind of giant red arrow on that plan, and that measures the 900 feet to the only residence that qualifies under that section of the distance requirements, which is actually Mr. Lufton, who's present and here in favor of the request, and also submitted one of those letters as well. So that's the only 900-foot requirement on this plan.
So
Does that answer your question a little
There's
bit?
no variances required to the business zone.
The commercial zone.
Commercial zone.
And, you know, I'm assuming, and maybe this is a bad assumption, well, I'm looking to see where else we have. So the properties that are already being used for industrial use within this park, are there variances required for those? Because of the adjacent nature?
The only variances required for those are the ones from if they apply to the 100-foot setback requirement. So you will see those listed if we touch one of those, which is the 100-foot setback variances that have been requested are all to those interior industrial zoned properties.
So Mr. Lumberman, I don't know if this is a quick look at the plat for you. If the commercially zoned properties, acknowledging that they are improved with residential dwellings, if they were taken out of this, and the 100-foot setbacks from our industrial use properties within the park were removed from that list of variances, how many do we wind up with?
Well, to be very clear, there are no variances required to the commercial districts. So that does not eliminate, but the interior industrial would eliminate, I think, 3 to 4 of the requests at least. 3. Is it 3, John?
These would, and so all of the C1 would be eliminated?
There's no variances to the C1.
There would be 4 variances eliminated
Properties.
if we did not have to request variances to the interior industrial lots. There would be at least 4.
It's the agricultural zone, it's really causing a lot of the
Yes.
variance requirements.
The ag zone is what's causing the variances?
That's
Small
correct,
lot
yes.
ag zone, yes.
Yes, under 3 acre
Under
lots.
3 acres lots.
Thank you.
Any other questions with Mr. Lumberman? Ms. Miller, is that your final witness?
Mr. Lufton, would you like to? Mr. Lufton is just going to just briefly introduce himself and say that he's here in support as one of the adjoining property owners.
Okay, go to the microphone, please. My understanding, you're the red line on the map, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, name, address, and occupation, and spell for the
Sure.
record your last name.
Charles Lupton, Lupton, 4117 Littlestown Pike, contractor.
Mr. Lupton, are you here today in support of the application?
Yes.
Unless you'd like to add anything else, that's really my only question to Mr. Lupton.
I don't see a problem from my standpoint.
Questions, board
Thank you.
members? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is that your final witness?
That is, thank you.
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
And when we come back, Mr. Iser, you're at the microphone. Nobody gets in front of you, okay? 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting back to order. Mr. Iser, don't sit down. Mr. Iser, go to the microphone. It's time for your testimony. This is the moments you've been waiting for all morning. So you don't have to ask anything as a question, you can give all your testimony.
Okay. Most of the old companies that goes back in there now, they don't use that right of way down there because it's all full of holes. They go up alongside our house. And when we was up there, I said, my property is on that guy's well. My well is on his property. He says it's not. But now, when we just talking, he said the guy owns the he owns the property too. And the other guy, my well is on his property.
Okay. So we've solved the mystery of whose property it's on.
Right.
And we only have easement to it.
Okay.
We have the right of way to the well, if anything happens to it. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Very good. Anyone have any questions? Ms. Miller, you have any questions, Mr. Iser's
I do not,
testimony?
thank you.
Board members? Mr. Iser, thank you very much for your participation today. Anyone else have any testimony? Okay. Presentation of testimony and evidence is now closed and summations are in order. Ms. Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We've talked about a lot of details today, so I'm going to do my best to kind of briefly summarize them. So, first of all, I want to remind you, and I think everyone is well familiar with this, that this is an industrially zoned area. This is zoned I-2, which is our heaviest industrial zoning district in Carroll County. Some of the uses that Mr. Lemmerman pointed out when he spoke about other permitted uses were principal permitted uses in the zone, meaning that we would never appear before this board. We would be allowed to do them if we could go through the site development plan process, which is the same process that we are also going to have to go through after the conclusion of this hearing if an approval is granted. So some of those uses were a concrete mixing plant, asphalt recycling. Our I-2's zone in the county is really intended for very high intensity industrial uses, and intensity I mean noise, odors, dust, traffic, heavy truck traffic. So there are a lot of uses that are by right principal permitted uses in that zoning district that are far, far, far greater in intensity than the one being requested here before you today. Now, I would submit to you that perhaps one of the thought process behind having this above-ground tank requirement as a conditional use and not a principal permitted use in our heaviest industrial zone is that it really could be utilized in any fashion you wanted to. And by that I mean you could be talking 75 trucks accessing this daily. You could be talking much more high-intensity use, and therefore legislatively, we've decided that this is something that needs to be requested before this board. I think in the case before you, you're looking at something very, very low in intensity, much lower than a lot of the permitted by right uses in the I-2 zoning district. So that, coupled with just the history of this site, I mean, this, and I shouldn't say site, this area, this industrial park area that you can see dates back to, gosh, when was one of those first BZA cases? Where did my exhibit packet go? You have several BZA cases in front of you, but one of them dates back to 1978. And so this area has really always historically been an industrial uses, a conglomeration of industrial uses. There's been different owners, different tenants, a whole different mix out here over the years, all of which has had truck traffic and has had more traffic than what you've heard testified to here today just for this one above ground petroleum product storage tank. Sorry, the terminology sometimes I have to remind myself. Your exhibit packet, what I've entered as applicant's exhibit 5, also shows you several neighbors who have supported this application, and I shouldn't just say neighbors, but I will say several properties that our variances have been requested to are included in this packet, if you will, as having expressed their support for this use. I think that's important to note in a situation like this, where there's a good handful of people who've recognized that this type of use is something that they are okay with being in this area. The location of this, and I want to get into the variances in just a second, but the proposed location of this really is designed to be in an area of the site that requires no additional disturbance, is easily accessed, and is really best suited. It really is the centermost of that industrial park portion of this area. So despite the fact that more of this property is zoned industrially, I think it makes the most sense for this to be where it is shown on here. I think it will have the least impact in terms of any environmental or other site requirements by keeping it easily accessed by the existing point of access and not creating additional disturbance that would be necessary if this were going to be put somewhere else on the site. As Mr. Lemmerman spoke to, this is the first step in the process, if you will, and we are requesting an approval here today, but even if an approval is granted here today, we still will need to go through the site plan requirements, which will include, among others, some Carroll County Health Department review, water resource review, MD permitting. All of those are designed to protect some of the situations that the ISERs have raised in terms of well concerns and overall access concerns to the site. And so I just want to emphasize the fact that those are not just overlooked when we step out of this room here today. Those are all taken into consideration, and nothing about Mr. Alby's use of his property has contributed to kind of past issues that apparently have occurred related to the ISERs well. And I think he has acknowledged here today that he's more than willing, if should anything occur, to be a good neighbor and work with people, and even if that means just passing on communications and kind of initiating action on the part of this sort of greater industrial park properties back here. There was a letter from the Department of Planning that was included in the file, and I do just want to briefly kind of point out a few things about that. One, this is a commercial village area recognized in the master plan. That is a future land use designation of the plan and sort of recognizes these areas in the county that are priority funding areas and that have a little bit more of a quasi-commercial sort of center to them than other just purely agriculturally zoned portions of the county. Most of them are located on major corridors, SHA corridors and such. So this is an example of an area that is a commercial village recognized on the master plan, which means that this is also in a priority funding area, which is usually indicative of somewhere that growth and development is encouraged and desired in a community. Overall, the planning letter also speaks to the consistency of this request with the master plan. So I just wanted to point out those few things. I summarized the variance testimony that Mr. Lemmerman predominantly offered in the sense that he spoke to the unique and unusual character of this property and the fact that it's split zoned, that it's a unique shape, and the overall history recognized in this area and recognized through those BZA decisions for this area. The variance standard, and I just want to be very clear about this because I think there's been some discussion and perhaps misunderstanding about the variance standard. But the variance standard is not such that if you can locate the use elsewhere, you're ineligible to request a variance. If that were the standard, as you can imagine, because you've seen several of these cases before, nobody would ever be requesting variances before you, nor would they ever be granted. Because I'll say to you, there is always another property in the county where you could, in theory, locate a use that complied with all of those distance requirements and you did not need a variance. So if that were the threshold that we were working with that was recognized under case law, we would never see them requested and we would never see them granted. And so I just want to be very clear that that is not what Maryland case law supports in looking at these variances. In my opinion, and as I've argued to you here today, we have met the legal requirement for variances. We have shown that there are unique and unusual characteristics about the property that lead to the practical hardship or unreasonable difficulty of not being able to request this use here. And the practical difficulty or unreasonable hardship, I think we meet either or, is that we couldn't relocate it anywhere on this property that would comply with these variances. So that effectively renders this property unusable for the request if you were to deny the variances. So that is the testimony that's been put forward today on improving the variance legal standard. So I would ask that this board approve the request with all of the associated variances. Again, acknowledging that there's a lot of neighbor support out here for this use and that there are uses in the I-2 zone that are much, much, much more intense in nature than the one that you've heard testified to. So, thank you.
Okay, the hearing and record of this case is now closed, and in accordance with the Open Meetings Act of Maryland, the board will now consider the case. Board members.
I'll go first. Thank you for your testimony here today. I think that this area has historically been used industrially for many, many years, I guess. And I think, I know this is before my time, but I think maybe the cannery was the first thing in this park, if you will. It's zoned appropriately. It's the most intense industrial zoning classification we have in this county. And this is a pretty passive use of this site, recognizing that there will be tractor trailers in and out, delivering petroleum product to the tank and then then getting it to deliver to the customers. It's going to require a site plan. So the concerns that I heard today will be addressed. The tank is going to need to be installed in compliance with MDE requirements. I understand that there's no maintenance obligations on the use in common, or the right-of-way that's going in there, which is unfortunate, but it's not atypical for properties of this era. And quite candidly, it's a mess up there. When you start looking at deeds and right-of-ways and all those other things, it is a disaster. So I don't know how that gets fixed, but I don't know that that becomes Mr. Albee's problem. I think that the tank is being located as close to possible to where the access point is. It's going on an existing concrete pad. As was talked about, there's no proposed disturbance. There's no other place to locate this tank on the site without variances. I think that it was demonstrated sufficiently that this property is unique to meet the criteria for granting these variances, recognizing that a lot of these were created or are necessary because of the fact that we have smaller lots on ag zones. And I don't believe that this is self-inflicted. And I think it clearly meets the Schultz versus Pritch requirements. And I'm prepared to vote in favor of it.
What's good next? Mr. Caldwell?
I've got nothing to add to that.
Nothing to add.
Thank you for speaking for all of us. The only thing that I want to want to say is one of the things that differentiates this from other fueling stations is no retail. There's no retail there, so it is going to be it's not like it's a corner gas station. So the traffic will be minimal, and that's one of the things I think is one of the features that makes this a good fit for the actual location. Okay, board members,
Do you want a motion?
I'm ready for a motion if you guys are finished talking the case.
Okay. Case number 6494 before the Board of Zoning Appeals. The board approve the request for a conditional use for an above-ground petroleum product storage tank and multiple variances.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our oral decision will become final upon a written decision, which will be issued within 30 days unless otherwise extended by this board. The board's decision may be appealed by filing a petition for judicial review with the clerk of the circuit court for Carroll County in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 200, Title 7 of the Maryland Rules of Procedure. The appeal must be filed within 30 days of the date of the board's written decision. Thank you very much, and this hearing is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to call the BZA back to order, and our second case of the day is case number 6493, which is a request for conditional use for a contractor storage yard and variances. Mr. Dixon, could you introduce the file for us, please?
All right, case 6493, a request for conditional use for contractor's equipment storage yard and variances. The site is located at Lot 1, 2.87 acres, Sykesville Road, Westminster, Maryland, on Property Zone A, Agricultural District in Election District 4 by Domenico Amodi, Code of Public Local Laws and Ordinances, Sections 158.070, 158.071.01, 158.173, 158.071.03, and 158.040. A site visit is tentatively scheduled for March 20th, 2024 at approximately 9:15 a.m. In the file of this matter, we have the following documents. Site minutes for the case. There is a March 19th, 2024 letter from Daphne Daly, Secretary to the Planning Commission. The letter states, after having reviewed the information contained in the attached analysis, the facts as presented in the application, the relevant portions of the plan, and in accordance with the provisions set forth in the land use article, this conditional use request, if granted, is consistent with the policies, timing of the implementation of the plan, timing of development, timing of rezoning, development patterns, land uses, and densities or intensities. There's a March 19th, 2024 memo from Randolph Mitchell, planning technician. The above referenced BZA case has been reviewed for consistency with the policies and recommendations contained in the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019, the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan, and other functional plans. Planning staff finds this request for conditional use and variances is consistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019 and would not have an adverse effect on the current use of the property. There is a response from, looks like State Highway Administration, and the comments to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies. There's no objection. Comments. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Laura Mateus, Bureau Chief, Development Review. A site plan is required in accordance with Chapter 155. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Thomas Harris, Permits and Inspections. Comments, all comments will be addressed during the site plan and building process. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Anastasia Yemelyanova, Acting Zoning Administrator. See attached sheet for information. No comments. There is a response from J.P. Smith Jr., Program Manager, Ag Land Preservation Program. This property is not in ag preservation. I have no comments at this time. Hearing notice was posted February 4th, 2024 by Scott Robinson, Zoning Inspector. There was notice of public hearing for this case, February 26, 2024. There is a response to Joe Vance's request from Pat Varga. He has an attached sheet. And then there is a conditional use application. The application includes some sort of plan from BPR Inc. BPR Inc. Looks like they're all from BPR Inc. Yes. I would ask that the file be entered into evidence.
Do we have a motion to enter the file into evidence?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor, aye.
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 All opposed, no. Motion carries. We will enter the file into evidence. Okay, Mr. Amaday. Good.
Swear everybody in.
Oh, yeah, let's swear everybody. Before we get started, see we have two people in the audience. What we're gonna do, Mr. Amaday will go ahead and make his presentation for his application today. After he gives his testimony, and I'm assuming that we have other testimony, anyone in the audience can ask questions of their testimony. The board members have the same opportunity. After Mr. Amaday is finished with his presentation, anyone from the audience can go to the microphone and state their, and give their testimony. So in the beginning, it's only questions of the testimony of the people that are giving their testimony. Okay, and with that, let's, if you're gonna testify here today, can you go ahead and please stand and raise your right hand? You might as well. In case you have a question later on. Oh, okay. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Very good. You can be seated. Ma'am, that gives you the opportunity to go to the microphone. No, I'm just saying at any time. Otherwise, I had to swear you in individually. Okay, Mr. Amaday. Good morning. Would you want to go ahead and tell us what you're requesting here this morning?
So I'm requesting, again, for a contracted use of storage yard on one of my properties. I've done this before. We just had a life event happening twice, and we just ran out of time.
Yeah, because
We've done this, I think, in 19 and then back in 22. We did it twice.
Okay, so could you go through on what you're requesting here?
So I'm a self-employed contractor, and we have a lot of equipment, trucks, trailers, skid loaders, and then we use a little bit of bulk salt and bag salt. That I'm just looking for a property where I can put my equipment on, and I'm trying to build a building to put everything, a lot of the stuff inside. But I think I have I own the closest house that belongs on the property, or attached to the house, but then we have variances from multiple other houses in the area.
Okay, anything else to add?
No.
Tell us why your property is unique, and you need those variances.
So it's, the property, I purchased the property because there's a house on the property, and for future work, I was gonna build my own house on the property. It's 3 minutes from the existing house that I've owned. It's just a stepping stone to my business, and it was a good opportunity at the time, and that's what we took the chance of taking it, and me and my company and my family. Just a slow start to try to build up a small company.
How many prior BZA approvals have you gotten?
Just 2.
And what were they for?
It's for this exact thing. We just didn't, so what happened the first time I did it is when I bought the property. I came in with the realtor just to make sure we were able to do this process. We ran into some financial issues. When that went through, 2016, I got hurt. Got flown out of shock trauma, got a full TNR, had 10 surgeries. At the same time, we had my first daughter, so everything kind of went downhill, and I just couldn't catch up to actually start with this building. I started with Randy at PBR to start doing the development plan, water storm systems that we need for the property, and then we just, like I said, ran out of time again. I went to had another family issue that came up last year, so I ran out of time and money.
So you had 2 prior BZA approvals for a contractor's
Contract
equipment
storage.
storage yard, but you ran out of time to get the project done. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Wasn't the last one an extension?
2 years ago.
That was 2
At
years.
our March
That's right after I
Because
got hurt.
I think Mr. Bechtel came with you.
No,
No,
I
oh, no,
think it was
oh, no.
Randy.
he didn't come.
Oh, he didn't come with you, that's right, he did not come with you. Okay, that's right, I remember that. So we approved this and then gave you an extension,
Yes,
and now you are completely out of time,
yes.
so it's effectively this.
Well, it was approved twice. And if you don't do something within a year or two, then
The approval.
zoning will say your approval lapsed, and they have to come back to the BZA.
And so that's why they're here
And
today.
that seems like that's why it's here
That's,
again
that's what I'm
today.
here again.
Because whatever the approval that he was given lapsed, or he couldn't get it done for whatever reason, and it lapsed, so the certificate's taken away, and he has to start all over again.
Is anything changing from what we approved before?
No.
Because our 2 years ago in March, it was actually at the March meeting, we extended, I think, what, 6 months or 1 year, him submitting a site plan.
Oh, I remember vividly.
And,
That's right.
and we didn't,
That's right.
yeah, because you want to get out of here.
No, it was not true.
So at that, and that site plan was not submitted in that time period.
So he can only get as much as 1 year extension. After
Right.
that, if
Yeah.
if it's not done, then zoning
And-
will
and
say,
that was-
you don't have a right to do this anymore.
Yeah, and that was 2 years ago that we had the extension request that we approved.
And I'm assuming we can't, this is de novo, we can't incorporate that into this hearing, or we can?
You don't need to. This is a new hearing. This is a new hearing. But I just wanted you to know historically that the board has approved this same thing, but, twice, but he's back again and the project isn't in place.
Okay, anything else to add, Mr. Amaday?
No. Man.
Any other questions of Mr. Amaday? Do you have any questions of Mr. Amaday? Yes. Okay, go, see, the swearing in paid off. Please state your name, your address, and your occupation.
My name is Judith Baker. I reside at 3432 Sykesville Road, Westminster, Maryland. I am retired. My question is, this is a residential area, and what does he plan on doing on this property?
Okay, Mr. Amadei, go ahead.
So I plan on basically keeping my commercial equipment. So it'd be pickup trucks, skid loaders, trailers, and other equipment that stay off the site. So when I don't have something on a business site, then that's my storage lot. I used to rent a couple of different properties last couple of years, and that's why we purchased this property, to keep everything in one section and to own the property versus renting the property.
And I'm going to follow up. There were cones in the field between where the driveway was and the residential area. Did that accurately delineate where you want to put a building?
That
And
is-
what size is that building?
That is the building spec, the 80 by 100. Yeah, it's 80 by 100. That is roughly the location where we were going to put the building. It wasn't flagged out. We just went out and laid it out to the best knowledge off the property line of my existing property.
Okay.
What type of vehicles are going to be traveling off of 32 onto your property?
Full size, like 1-ton pickup trucks. We do have a tractor trailer, but that doesn't get used a lot. It's only to move equipment to sites in quantity, mostly like snow removal. And if we start like big excavating jobs, we move multiple equipment at one time. But mostly it's just gonna be pickup trucks and trailers.
And what other type of material are you storing on that property to use tractor trailers or a 1-ton pickup truck or something like that?
The tractor trailer is used mostly for just hauling the equipment. We haul skid loaders, excavators, rollers. The material use is, concrete, like bagged concrete, stone. We do have dump trailers that carry debris, like trash and demo, but nothing gets dumped there. Everything just gets taken to the landfill.
Don't you have some other type of agricultural material on your property? And when you drive into your driveway, in the back, on the right-hand side,
Millings,
what is it?
the millings, the asphalt, the black stuff, the big piles.
It's gray stuff piled up on top.
Yeah, so that is, that's not meant to be stored there. We did that because when we did the building, CJ Miller was allowing me to take some of the millings, and we were using that to use it as an asphalt base for around the building and the existing driveway, but it's just a stockpile.
But I have seen that pile go up and I've seen the pile go down.
We've never added to it. We've always taken stuff out of there, but we've
Sir?
never added.
There has been times that that pile is higher.
I'm telling you, you can call CJ Miller. I've never added to it. We did it one time when they loaded it, and we haven't had the last time we had any millings delivered was probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Why do you want to store tractor trailers or dump trucks in that vicinity? It's an area of a residential. Why are you bringing this business into our community and storing all these vehicles?
But this is the way I make a living. That property was agricultural. I'm trying to look at her, but I'm trying to get
Speak into the
Yeah.
microphone. Go ahead. Yeah, I know it's a
I
little
apologize,
awkward.
because I would like to look
It's
at
a
her.
little awkward,
Yeah.
but go ahead and speak into the
But
microphone.
this is the way I make the living. This is how I support my family. It was agricultural use when I purchased the property back in 2014, I think it was. We came to the Carroll County BZA meeting to make sure we were allowed to do this. Yes, there's other locations, but I couldn't afford anything, and this is the closest thing in my budget. And like I said, this is how I support my family. I got 2 little girls, and this is a future that will support their livelihood as well.
I have lived in this area for 40 years. And by you putting all this type of equipment, building a big storage building, it's taken the value of our property down. Is that fair to us? You can't go to an industrial area and find a space to put your vehicles? Is it fair to these residents in this area to have to look at this? I mean, this is an eyesore going up and down 32 to see all this. I know you have to make a living, we all do, but I have worked hard all my life for my property, and I don't want to lose the value of my property because you want a business in a residential area. Is it fair to our people in that community? I don't think so. I mean, I think it's great that you're in business and you want to support your family. But did you think of the people in that area, what you're doing to us? Why don't you store your vehicles at your home? Why not? Can you do that?
I didn't know what to answer, so I didn't.
Well, if you don't know the answer to that, then.
So, I mean, I could speak some comments, like, you know, I don't have the property at my home to store anything. There's no difference, and I'm not trying to blend other situations, but there's no difference. Your husband is a welder himself. He works on his equipment outside the house, grinding, welding, you know. Just the way he's making a living at his house, at his property, I have the same right as anybody else to make a living on my house and my property. I can't control, you know, your opinion on the situation. But just like you could do, you know, as needed to do whatever you need to do on your property, I should have the same right to do that on mine. This is not something that I do for fun. This is something that I do for my livelihood. This is how I pay my bills. The property was for sale for multiple years. You know, no one was touching it. In my opinion, I made the value higher. I cleaned up the property. You know, I put thousands and thousands of dollars in cleaning up trees, putting thousands of dollars of site plan work. I'm putting, you know, that building's $300-something thousand building itself. This is not just a 2x4 shed going onto a piece of property.
But you're not living in that house, is that correct?
I'm not living in that house, correct, but that's not the property that we're
So
doing.
therefore, you don't have to look at this eyesore that the rest of the people that live in the community have to look at it. That's not fair to us.
Well, I've spoke to all the neighbors in the area, and you know, they all know me. They all have my number. They've reached out. I've done work for them, helped them out. No one else in the area has any issues with this. And if they had any, like, you know, if we were out there too late, you know, I can understand that. But I don't even have my guys come out there. The biggest time that we have multiple trucks getting out are during the snow season. Other than that, you know, we really don't make noise. We kind of keep to ourselves. I personally get on the property every day because I go from my personal vehicle to my business vehicle. So I do see it every day. And I do try to keep everything as clean as possible. There's a lot of stuff, yes, but it's not trash. It's not, you know, piles of garbage and debris and excessive stuff. It's equipment and vehicles, and everything is kind of neatly placed where they need to be. The building would definitely help us with keeping some of the stuff out of sight, but I do my best to do that. I planted, I think it was 100 trees across, and most of it comes across your side of the property, just to kind of help you prevent from seeing anything. And the trees are getting bigger. Hopefully in a couple more years, they're green giants. They'll make a protection wall going across the whole thing that it will keep your vision looking at trees versus looking at my pickup trucks.
I still have,
Okay, and look, you'll have an opportunity for you to give your own testimony, but any other questions of what he said?
I have one to ask for all of you. I called the county about this because I just found out the posting of the hearing sign.
Mm-hmm.
What size are those signs supposed to be for posting? And where do you post them on the property from the road?
I think Mr. Robinson is the one that posted the sign, and I'm not the signs are this big by this big. I don't know what.
Can I show you a picture of the sign?
Well, we saw it when
Oh,
we did
did
our,
you?
we saw it when we did our site visit. Yes, ma'am.
It's a very small sign, and you can't even read it. unless you go on their private property to read it, you can't read it from the road.
Yeah, we saw where the location was. It was probably 30 feet from the edge of the road.
But should it be 30 feet for people to read it? That's my sign.
That's the zoning office, and I can't
I
answer
called
the
them, and they couldn't tell me the size that a sign should be posted,
So from my knowledge,
The
everybody
size
gets a
of it?
letter as well.
or the, how many feet from the road that it should be.
Yeah, I don't know about that, and we don't know about that.
Because it was very hard, all of a sudden, a neighbor down from him called, said, "Did you see the zoning sign?" And I said, "No, which zoning sign are you talking about?" And,
But did you get a notice in the mail?
no, I did not. I did not get a notice.
Check that.
I mean, he's in the 3300 block, I'm 34. Does that make?
You're not an adjoining property owner?
No, I'm not.
Okay, yeah. The county code says that adjoining property owners are to receive written notice, and it is to be posted. So that's, if you've got a problem with that policy, take it up with the commissioners. They're ultimately in charge
It's
of
the
that policy.
commissioner's problem.
Yeah, that's a commissioner problem. It's further up, way further up the ladder than us.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a qualification if I can. Do we know when the original request was made? In the hearing that was granted initially?
Isn't that in the fall?
I think the first time we originally came was with my, when I was buying the property. I didn't own the
to the
property.
left.
What, is it the fall?
Nope, this one's the left.
The very first
14
time?
when I bought the property.
So the first time you came in was what year?
I think it was 14 or 16, but I didn't own the property. I came with the real estate agent who was selling the property, and that was part of my my stipulation. Like I wouldn't buy the property if this wasn't able to do so.
24, that's this one.
See, I got this was 22.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, this is where I'm coming from.
Here's 16. So May 16th, March 7th, 2016.
Of what year?
2016.
16.
The second?
Okay. And this is,
And then there was a second time.
For an
okay,
extension.
so it was approved here
Like,
and it was
you should have all
executed?
these, but like this is
was
what
the-
happened. I got flown out, shot,
Oh,
shot.
so,
I'm trying to get my understanding, is this a situation where there's an original and then a modification and the modification? This is the original. So we really are hearing this case as if it's a brand-new applicant.
de novo, yes.
Has the rules affiliated with the changes in November 22 now affect this differently? What I'm saying, does he now meet that? Because he'd have to abide by the new criteria.
Yes.
What size is the total lot that that's occupied, that occupies the,
So it's
Site yard.
2.87 acres is the lot.
I'm so sorry?
2.7 acres is the lot that I'm using. So I own almost 8 acres total.
Okay.
But I subdivided the property because there is another house on the property that when I purchased it from Miss Niner, I didn't have the plan on buying all the property. I just planned on buying just the 2.7 acres to do my commercial building, but I ended up buying everything. So I subdivided everything so that way it doesn't interfere. So I didn't want to make 7 acres into commercial use. I only wanted to do the one side, the 2.87 acre lot area. So we're only using, right now we're using about 1 acre, but it's just flat ground.
How much room are you using?
About 1 acre.
About 1 acre. So your lot overall is 8 acres. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm using round
Yeah,
figures.
I can try to find an exact measurement.
And the space that is that's gonna be utilized as his equipment storage yard is 1 acre. Is that what I'm hearing?
About 1 acre, yep. Here, I
Because
have
I'm just making sure it complies with existing requirements.
2.87.
Because existing requirements can't exceed 1 acre. Is that not correct?
That is correct, without variances.
The lot size must be 5 or more, and it must be, the space being utilized cannot be more than 1 acre.
That is correct.
Okay, I'm just saying that's criteria I don't believe existed when he got his original
But he falls, he meets that criteria.
He meets that criteria now, but it needs to be it needs to be specified in any approval, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think that would be, absolutely, and as he goes through the development review process, they adhere to that, so.
Roger that. Okay.
And maybe Randy can answer that when he gets ready to testify.
Sure.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Amaday?
Oh, no, man. I mean, I have pictures and stuff. I mean, you guys should have of the building, of what it's supposed to look like, what the blueprints is. I mean, X-rays of what happened, why, what happened during the years that. Trust me, I want this building up as fast as I can because I don't want stuff sitting outside. I'm paying on a property that's just a piece of land.
And my last question is, so the entire space consists of two properties, two deeded properties?
It's three.
Three deeded
Three
properties.
deeded properties.
So I don't know how that would play out in the approval, whether it's, if they'll have to be deeded the same or not. I don't know. Because the storage yard's no less than 5 acres.
Yeah, so the one property has the house on it, is the only one that, like, we were gonna leave alone. If I need to, I could put the two properties, the two just lots
And-
together.
Yeah, that's outside our world. It's just, I'm just bringing that up as,
Yeah.
as a question almost.
Yeah, I don't know if I should talk, or.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Mr. Snyder's questions can be answered a little bit better. You want to go ahead and state your name, address, occupation?
Hang on, I haven't had a chance to ask a question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Mr. Amity, how long have you been operating your business there?
Since 2016 I've parked my equipment there.
2016, thank
Yeah.
you.
Sorry, I didn't see you, Richard.
That's all right. Thank you, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, do you have another one?
Nope, that's it,
Okay.
fine.
Randy, state your name, address, occupation, and spell for the record your last name.
My name is Randy Petkus. I work for BPR Incorporated. It's now BPR LLC, I should say. It's 150 Airport Drive, Unit Number 4, Westminster, Maryland, 21157. And my last name is spelled Petkus, and I'm the civil engineer for BPR. I've been working there since 2003.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I first want to just clarify, yes, so he has 3 separate lots, 3 civil, all deeded to you, right, all in your
It's
name?
all different LLCs, but it's all,
Different
I'm the only
LLCs,
owner.
okay, but the particular lot we're doing is that, Lot 1, 2.87 acres, and he wants to put that contractor storage yard there, and the last zoning approval said it was limited to 1 acre. We have comments from, we submitted a site plan, back, a year or so ago, 2 years even, a site plan, and it got those initial review comments from Stormwater and Development Review and, all those agencies there, and we were in the middle, we were going to address those comments and send it back in, and then things kind of fell apart. That's where we are today, that's why we're back here again.
And this meets the question is, this meets the criteria, even though we have it deeded in maybe some different names, this meets the criteria for the contractor storage yard with the new.
I mean, I can't answer that, I assumed it did, or we wouldn't be submitting this in.
From my knowledge, that's
Well,
what,
my question is this, and I think, and it might be semantical, I don't know the answer, but the criteria is the lot must be at least 5 acres, and 1 acre, not to exceed 1 acre, can be used as a storage yard. So if the gentleman owns 3 adjoining parcels, and the site plan that's as prepared only covers 2.87 acres, it doesn't meet the criteria. And the rationale being is, he could philosophically develop the 2.87 acres, put the storage lot on that, and then sell off the other 2, and you don't meet the criteria. That's the point I'm trying to make. So I think it's something that has to be discussed in the process. But right now, what I'm hearing is it's a 2.87
Yes.
acre parcel.
Yeah, because
that-
it's different, because it's a different, owned by the same, it's owned by me, but I get what you're saying, but I can sell, because they're all
Yeah.
subdividable, so I can sell them, okay.
So
Now, would that be something that, who would answer those questions?
it seems to me that question
That
kind
would
of
be
falls.
Anastasia, that would be,
I think we almost need a decision, a ruling, whatever you want to call it, because right
Call
now,
Anastasia then.
what's being proposed is a storage yard on
I'll-
2.87 acres.
okay.
And that doesn't meet the criteria.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take about a 5-minute break, and we're gonna get the acting zoning administrator down here.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna call the BZA meeting back to order, and, Anastasia, could you go ahead and please, stand and take the oath? I gotta swear you in. Okay. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Very good. You can be seated.
Thank you.
So, the question, you didn't have any watching us. The,
No, I couldn't.
okay, so the question is, we have a request for do you have this in front of you? What the, it's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
So the request is for a conditional use for a contractor's equipment storage yard and variances. The lot is only 2.87 acres. In order to have a contractor storage yard, it needs to be larger than that, according to the code?
Yes, you have to have at least 5 acres land to be able to have the contractor storage yard. However, to use the area for the contractor equipment storage yard is only 1 acre land of that 5 acres. So minimum lot size has to be 5 acres.
Okay, so Mr. Amadei has a total of nearly 8 acres in 3 deeds, but they're in separate names, and they're all owned by him technically. Explain
So
what you have,
there's-
Mr.
there's
Amadei.
3 different properties, all touching, all different LLCs, but I'm the prime owner. I'm the only owner. So the reason why we did it that way, like I said, when we did it, we bought it in 2014, so we are able to, if I rent the house and something, God forbid, happens to the house, they can't touch all the existing properties touching the existing thing. So if I put a building up and something happens there, you can't go after the house. But I own all of them as the only ownership of the property.
But it's under
Under
different,
different LLCs. So it's just Amadei 1, 2, and 3.
They're all deeded separately.
so they're deeded separately, 3 properties deeded separately. They don't, together they're over 5 acres, but the property that he's requesting the contractor storage yard on is only 2.87. Does that qualify, or do they need to, they need to, if he wants to do it on this site, then he would have to have his land engineer incorporate one of those parcels back into this?
Together, yes. So in general, you have to compile.
So my next question would be, when did it change? Because I was already approved, and this
Yeah,
never
but,
came
yeah,
up.
you were approved, but that was a lapse, so we have to go by, you're not grandfathered in. If you would have met all the deadlines, you would have been grandfathered in, but you weren't.
So was that,
November 22.
okay. That's what I was asking. I didn't know when it, that's what answered. Okay. That's why I was like, I didn't know if it was part of it. Okay.
So, Mr. Dixon, the way forward here is that we have a continuance of this case.
I have one more
and-
question. I don't know if I can answer it today or whatever. So my question would be, the properties have one dwelling already existing. If I do, add to make it 5 acres, am I still able to put the other 2 dwellings on the property?
I don't know, that's an Anna question.
So in general, you can have a couple different principal uses on a property. However, so if your question, if you're going to combine those 2 lots or 3 lots?
Well, I'd probably just end up doing the 2.
Okay, so combine 2 lots and you have existing house.
Yeah, that's on a different property. So, so this is the big picture. So I don't own this, but I own this property, and this property. So this property's, available to put a dwelling,
Lot one.
and then this is a lot two for a different house. This is already existing.
Do a continuous for
If I
90
put these
days,
two houses,
giving
these
time
two
to
properties together,
transition the
am I
land.
still able to put these two houses here?
That would be from,
Pretty
question for the
straightforward.
well,
Can be
the
done
health
within 30
department.
days.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
Because
conjoin it,
according to
you,
your well and
it's
septic
just
plan,
deep.
Already
it
been-
will be-
Yes, I already
But
had that.
you will be able to put
And then the
the
next question is, if you
dwelling,
adjoins,
if it's a
he has to make
buildable
sure that
lot,
the two
and
lots
if
he
you comply with
adjoins
the health
are
department
conjoined
requirement to have a
equal
dwelling
5 acres or
and
more.
the conditional use approval
So
as
I
a
already had
combined.
that.
They'll
This
come
is
back with
already
4.5
the
acres.
dwelling and the building,
Uh-huh.
but then if I add this property, I don't wanna lose this dwelling.
How you can,
Well,
I'm
'cause
not
I-
following.
for
Okay,
my-
so, wait a minute, these are technical questions. We cannot move, as a board, we cannot move forward today with this request because it's only 2.87 acres and it has to have a minimum of 5. So what my suggestion is that we have a continuation of this case after you work out the details with the zoning administrator and BPR, and come back to us with a plan that meets the present code. Is that good? Mr. Dixon, do we need a motion to do that, or,
Yeah, let's get a motion.
okay,
Yeah, Mr.
I can't make a motion, so.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue this case for a period not to exceed 90 days.
Well, wait a minute, I didn't know it was gonna be that long. We usually, we do
Well, the
it.
thing is, they may have to do survey work. I don't know how much work they're gonna have to do to
They have
get
to-
these lots.
You have to survey it and then retitle it and transfer it
What,
because it's
what
between
time
companies.
period do you,
Okay, well, let's just, the 90 days, so we're gonna, that's our hearing in,
Well, I said not to exceed.
not to exceed.
yeah, so,
Okay.
So if I can get it done sooner, then
yes.
Okay, good, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Well, let's, I think we're safer. Let's just put it on for next month's hearing. And if he can't be done by next month, then we'll put it over for the next month.
so I have
How
a
to make
personal
that
thing
motion.
next month, so I really.
We'll put it on for our hearings in April, whenever they're scheduled. In this case will be on. And if he's not done, then we can grant him another postponement.
Well, if this, okay, so it's 30 days.
That's quick.
Is that reasonable?
I mean,
No.
it's kinda
I
tight.
don't
That's
think so.
quick.
That's
yeah.
too quick.
That's quick to get a survey.
60 days.
Okay, okay, our hearings in May.
When-
May.
May hearings.
Why not just simply reapply as a new case number?
Well, because I think we want to keep the case we have,
We'll keep it
and we'll
alive.
just continue everything, and all we're
Yes.
doing is dealing with the 5 acre part. We're not,
Right.
we don't have to deal with the whole case.
Probably make the motion. I just emphasize that when the two lots you can join, make sure they're at least 5 acres. I'm not,
Yeah,
as
I
opposed to
understand that,
4.75 or something. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue this case until the May Board of Zoning Appeals hearing.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Still think that's tight.
We'll
So
find
you
out.
can ask them for a
Yeah,
postponement,
they can ask for a
roughly.
postponement.
If I need more time, I could just,
Ask for a postponement?
Ask for a
we would
postponement.
ask for postponement.
If he needs more time.
'Cause I
you're
have
not
a
opposed
sch-
to
I have a
postponement.
No, then we'll deal with it in May. We'll deal with it in
I
May.
have a date, May 6th to the 10th, that I won't be around.
Yeah, well,
But the hearings are at the end of the
At
month.
the end of the month, okay?
That works, I mean, that's my big thing.
Can I get a letter advising me of the new hearing?
Did you sign the sheet over here on the side?
No, I did not.
Sign that sheet and you will then get a letter, okay? Any further discussion on the motion?
So, I'll get more, but for every 5, so you have 5 acres for every 1 acre commercial use.
No. You, just ask-
I get it. I appreciate it.
she knows the code. Okay, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no? Very good. The hearing is adjourned. Thank you very much.